I was thinking that I was going to retire because I'm getting quite old, but I realised the other day that I think retirement for people in this business is a bit like being a lobster and being cooked from cold. So you don't realise when it's over. It's painless.
What colour are you now?
I think I'm getting quite pink.
How old are you?
Not in a gammony way.
Oh, no, not in a How old are you?
I was 62 a few weeks ago.
And how old do you feel?
About 62.
Do you? You don't feel
well,
like
no, in my head. Well, I was accused the other day by someone very close to me of still being 12.
Yeah. There's the answer to the question I asked.
I'm quite happy being 12 in my head.
Virgin Radio.
Today's guest joining us at the top of the tower, God help us, we'll talk about that in a minute, is best known for his time on the television with his friends Jeremy and Richard, and he's no stranger to an adventure on his own. He's diving headfirst into history, I'm delighted to say, with his latest show. I had great fun watching the episode 1 last night. James May's Great Explorers. James, welcome to the 17th floor of the building. How are you coping?
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm not looking out of the window and I'm not sitting too close to the edge. I don't really like tall buildings. We've discussed this before.
We have discussed this.
Yeah, I don't like tall hotels. I couldn't work in a skyscraper. I'm a very much low-rise sort of person.
I appreciate that. I noticed it's a low-rise, not low-rent. We have to.
I don't mind low-rent either. I've lived in some very low-rent places, but they were also low-rise. I think 4th floor is about high enough.
I can understand that because our view, we're at the 17th, so we can look out the window and see everything. I can see over your shoulder. So when you sat down, I said, put your back to the window so we don't unnerve you.
I'll turn you. My voice will go strange as I turn. There's. Oh.
You can see the Tower Bridge and the Tower of London. Does that put you a little bit on edge? Are you okay?
No, I'm okay because if I went, you've got a little room there next to. I wouldn't like it in there.
There's a barrier there. Okay, not bad. I just thought, given what you did for a living and all the comings and goings and all the adventure, that heights mightn't be an issue. So this has been a thing from childhood, probably.
Yes, I've never really liked heights, and people who aren't scared of heights can never understand it. They just say, oh well, it's a psychological thing. Oh, you think you're going to jump off? I never think I'm going to jump off. My fear is that I will fall off. Yeah. I actually think intelligent people are scared of heights because it's a perfectly rational fear of death.
Yeah.
People who aren't scared of heights don't care if they die.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, stupid.
Congratulations on your series. I really enjoyed it. So talk to me about. Why don't you maybe tell people about what it is? What's the gist? What's the purpose of it?
Well, it's called Great Explorers. It's 3 explorers. It's Columbus, Walter Raleigh, and Captain James Cook, and it's not. I don't sail to New Zealand or anything like that. I'm not recreating the voyages. I'm looking at some of the peripheral issues, things like the navigation, which was very important, obviously. Navigation provisions, the ship technology, sail technology, that sort of thing. So it's a sort of half history, half tech program,
and a little bit of food and wine thrown in.
There's some terrible food in it.
I was struck by the water. You would think that because you talk about these casks of water. In my ignorance, I presumed that these guys were ahead of their time, that the water was going to be beautiful, and that's what they made the Coopers were doing.
No, because the water that went into those barrels came out of wells, so it wasn't chlorinated or any of those things that we have now, and it did go off.
Yeah.
And in fact, if Columbus hadn't bumped into what we would now call the Americas, and they weren't there, and he had gone all the way to Asia by the other route, it was more than twice as far as he thought it was.
Yeah.
And they would have just all died about halfway there.
Yeah.
They'd have starved and been dehydrated to death.
That's what is so intriguing about it, is the daring do of it all, the adventurous nature of it, but also the confusion. I mean, there's only the lack of technology meant that at one stage you show us a map and you're going, what, the shapes of countries as they saw them then.
Yeah, no, it's completely wrong. I mean, modern maps are wrong because of the projections we use, but it means that all the longitude is correct, so you can navigate properly. This is one of the eternal problems of map making, representing what is a globe or an oblate sphere, strictly speaking, on a flat piece of paper. You can never actually get it right. You have to compromise it one way or another. But some of those early maps, I mean, they're conspicuous mainly because of everything that's missing from them. So there's no North or South America, there's no Australia, there's no New Zealand, there's big bits of Africa which are only a rough outline and an incorrect one at that. I was working out to myself when we were in Spain, when Columbus set off, if you were at effectively sea level standing on the harbour wall, they would be out of sight in a matter of, I think I worked it out at being about 7 miles. The ship would be out of sight. After a few hundred metres, you're out of earshot. So a few hours after they departed, nobody knew what had happened to them, and they had no idea what had happened back home. And it wasn't until they did get back home and then sent a letter to say they'd returned
It's
that anybody knew.
remarkable. Yeah,
it is. And I mean, we didn't put this in the show eventually, but I compared it with the moon shots.
Yes.
Which were incredibly audacious and very brave. I seem to remember that Aldrin and Armstrong rated their chances of getting off the moon safely at only 50%.
No.
So they were very ballsy about it.
Yeah.
But the difference is we did know the moon was there. And they'd studied it
Yes.
with, flybys and through telescopes and Russian probes and all this sort of thing. They just had to work out how to get there. But when Columbus and Cook set off, they didn't know.
Yeah.
It was proper here be monsters.
Right,
stuff.
and the moon shot, the clues in the name, you know where you're shooting for, but to jump into the dark, equally, they didn't know what they were doing. And
Absolutely no idea.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the moon shot and astronauts, because that's what this is all about. I mean, when you watch Star Trek, or you even look at the real moon landings and talk of Elon Musk and Mars and so on, these were the original astronauts in some ways.
They were.
The aquanauts, if you want to call them. And you were saying that possibly even more gutsy, given what they were dealing with.
Well, I mean, you have to bear in mind that so if we take Columbus again, in the late 15th century, life ashore was not that great. There was disease and injustices and religious persecution, all sorts of terrible things happening. But even so, your chances of surviving a big voyage at sea were not that great.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time we get to Captain Cook, he does care about the crew. Obviously, he makes them exercise. He's fastidious about hygiene. He gets his cure for scurvy a bit wrong, but it does at least care, and it makes a difference. But I think prior to that, you were taking a massive risk simply being a sailor.
Yeah, savage. Okay,
and the food is awful.
And the food is awful.
The ship's biscuits. I soaked one of them for over an hour in a sort of pork fat stew that they used to make on special days, and I still couldn't bite it. Yeah. I couldn't bite it.
That was their dinner or their
snack.
Yeah,
that was most of what they ate. Yes, was effectively bits of MDF.
Which is before we got to the weevils, who also make an appearance in the.
Yeah, and then you get weevils, which are. I didn't actually try to eat them, but apparently they are perfectly harmless to eat, and actually, well, there's a very, very, very tiny amount of protein in them. But they are very small. It's not like a burger.
No, Mac Weevil and fries. Throughout the music, we were still talking about it, because one of the striking things about the program was the lack of certainty in certain departments about things like, where was Christopher Columbus from? What did he die of? What did Sir Walter Raleigh bring to the world? Did he actually deliver the potato and tobacco to Europe? Loads of questions of answered.
I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's going to watch, but we do explode a few myths, and there are a lot to explode with Sir Walter Raleigh, and potatoes and tobacco are there, and the fact that some of his famous voyages he wasn't actually on.
That's extraordinary.
He was a bit of I think he was a bit thuggish.
Yeah.
He was a bit of a licensed pirate and buccaneer. Whilst he was doing it right, he would be disowned if he got it wrong, obviously, and he was a grifter.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Captain Cook, my admiration for Captain Cook increases, because I don't think he had particular ambitions for wealth or even glory. I don't think he was naturally a colonizer. I think he was a nerd.
Lovely.
He liked making maps. And I think that pairing of him and Banks, they facilitated each other, the humble Yorkshire lad and the basically playboy with an interest in botany. That worked perfectly.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because having read that book, The Wide Wide Sea, I mentioned to you Hampton Sides, and then I got to visit Kew Gardens, and you realise that's what a lot of the things that are in Kew Gardens were brought from these voyages. I mean, they're so interesting. Voyages of discovery and learning. You say this in the programme when you bring back exotic animals and foods, and like, what is this? I mean, what an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in the Natural History Museum, we went there and looked at. They have a curator of dead fish, effectively, and
what a job spec. Yeah,
he loves it though.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course he does.
He's absolutely into it. But he took out jars, and they have in them specimens of fish. They've completely lost their colour now, but they're in alcohol basically, or formaldehyde or something, and they're the actual ones that they collected
from
the voyage. And so Banks held them, and then he opened the lid, and I said, "Well, you're not going to get it out?" And he said, "Yeah." And he took it out, and I held it.
Wow, from
the same fish.
Yeah.
I thought, and that was.
That's exciting, isn't it?
It is very exciting.
Yeah, it is
yes.
exciting. And
It's a very strange place. It's sort of down in the basement and it's quite dark and it's full of dead things in jars. And some of them have faces, obviously.
I want to see this show. There's a whole other show to be made.
There is.
Yeah.
There's Locked in the Fish department
Yeah.
at night when
Yeah.
they all come alive again.
Season 2. The other thing that you touch on, and as you mentioned, Columbus and Cook, there a lot of the statues to them and plaques to them have been defaced and desecrated. The 21st century doesn't look upon them as kindly as previous centuries did because of obvious reasons, which is what the indigenous population and so forth.
It's all that. I mean, there has been. I know that statues of Cook have been taken down, definitely in New Zealand, I think possibly Australia as well. The one in Whitby is still there. I don't know what to think about taking down statues because, yes, they are monuments to people who later on we revisit. And, of course, we change our ideas about things like empire.
We
and
evolve.
about yes, and the slave trade and so on. So they become figures of hate rather than heroes. But maybe we should leave them up and put a better explanation on the plinth.
Context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Statues are a bit weird anyway. I remember writing in a newspaper article, what feels like about 100 years ago now, that if you haven't been plinth yet, you've got virtually no chance because there's no space left. But also, we tend not to look at statues. I go around the centre of London quite a lot on my bicycle and so on, but I can think of maybe 3 or 4 that I could actually name.
Attract your attention.
Yeah, the rest of them, they're sort of some old bloke on a horse, but I have no idea who it is.
Okay, I'm just writing an idea for a show like Alan Partridge, James May, and statues of the world. I mean, that's what we really want.
Well, just statues of London.
Just statue of London, there's enough around.
Them.
Yeah, in any.
But if you had to ask me to name statues, so I know the Burgers, the Rodin one over near the Houses of Parliament, Edith Cavell, the Animals in War one, I know.
The little Laurence Olivier outside South Bank.
I'd forgotten about that, but yes, if I'd thought of it.
It's always little and weird looking, I think. Yeah.
Bomber Command and Battle of Britain memorials, but specific people.
Yeah, there's a guy called, I think Swartkowski is a general. He's out there near
Where's he?
Near the Langham Hotel there. It's but anyway, Portland Place.
Yeah, up near the
Portland
BBC
Place.
building. So what did he do? Send millions of people to a pointless death?
I would imagine so. I mean, there's a few of those around the place.
There are.
Okay, now we've got this idea for the show. Let's keep going. Okay, we've got to leave it here for now, but I presume you've got a million other projects on the go as well, have you, as well as this one?
Well, not too. I mean, I was thinking that I was going to retire because I'm getting quite old, but I realised the other day that I think retirement for people in this business is a bit like being a lobster and being cooked from cold. So you don't realise when it's over. It's painless.
What colour are you now?
I think I'm getting quite pink.
How old are you?
Not in a gammony way.
Oh no, not in a How old are you?
I was 62 a few weeks ago.
And how old do you feel?
About 62.
Do you? You don't feel
like no, that's not true. I mean, I'm going to the dentist after seeing you. I'm about to lose one of my teeth, which I've had for, I suppose it's half a century, and that's going to feel my tongue is going to be bereaved by that loss, but it's just worn out, so it's got to go. So that bit of me does feel quite old. I think in my head, I was accused the other day by someone very close to me of still being 12.
Yeah, there's the answer to the question I asked.
I'm quite happy being 12 in my head.
Go with 12. James May, what a pleasure to see you. And
yes, and you.
And good luck with the dentist. James May's Great Explorers starting Thursday 9 p.m. on Channel 5, streaming on My 5. It's terrific. Really enjoyed the Christopher Columbus, and the rest I'm sure will be wonderful history too. Thanks, James. Good luck.
Thank you.
Virgin Radio.